arrest criminals and we put them behind bars. And then after that, we forget about them.
You know, we read in the headlines how heinous the crime was. And, like the guy down from Bakersfield that took the little girl off the streets, you know, I think she was 17, 18 years old. And I read the case file at the time and I can't remember all the particulars, but, he took her to a seedy hotel and he killed her and drove a landscape spike through her neck, put her on all fours and did bad things to her for a couple of days after she was dead. And while he was doing that, stabbing her with pruning shears, those types of things.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And this is the type of guy, that comes into the prison. And obviously that's, when you read the story or you get a news feed on your phone, you're like, oh, wow, that guy, oh my gosh, people like that exist in life. And by the way, he later on killed somebody inside the prison as well and did really bad things to the person that he killed. And I don't want to get too much into that because it's very gruesome. But so, we're dealing with these types of people. I take my brothers and sisters down at Kern Valley and 3/4 of the population at Kern Valley, the inmate population, are doing life or extremely long terms. And they don't have a lot to lose. They don't understand that they could do better even in the prison setting. A lot of them are involved in gangs. It's very, very difficult for these people to do what we say, do their own time. Usually you have to become affiliated once you go into a prison. That's how you survive. And that affiliation requires you to do certain things. And
these are not good things.
They're not good things. No.
These are not community service oriented things.
No. And it's not unusual for, somebody to go in and doing a, 10-year prison sentence and wind up, staying in prison their whole life because of additional things they've done, offenses that they've done inside prison offenses, and these are the types of things, these type of people that we're dealing with. So yeah, I've seen some very horrific things inside of prisons. I've seen cops, be attacked. I had a guy in early on in my career try to stab me, and we were doing a cell extraction and the SWAT team got activated. Because one of the officers doing cell extractions before the SWAT team got activated. And we knew that these guys had weapons because we found metal missing inside the cells on the desk areas. It's stainless steel, and they cut it out. It's crazy how they cut metal with things like
it's interesting what you were saying. Yeah, it was interesting what you were saying. Going back to Attica real quick, and that they're swapping of the uniforms, and people think, oh, these are dumb people that are behind prison. When the reality of it is while they may be maniacal and evil, and there's some level of brilliance in what they do. So going back, they're finding ways to survive, and not only survive, perpetrate additional crimes. So they're cutting up desks, whatever they can get their hands on, right?
Yeah. I've seen videos. They've done videos of guys that were weapons making experts, and some of these guys have actually been willing to go on video, and usually it's the investigative services unit that'll go in and film these types of things happening. But they'll make weapons, plastic weapons, out of styrofoam cups or plastic bottles that they have, that shampoo, or those types of things. Some of these guys are very, very intelligent. And by the way, some of the best artists that I've ever seen in my life are in prison.
Behind bars.
Yeah. And whether it's tattoo artists, and you're not supposed to tattoo in prison, but it happens, or, just drawings or those. There is some talented people in prison. They just chose to not utilize those talents in the best of ways and commit crimes. But
well, yeah. I cut you off there. Sorry, just with regard to the creativeness and somebody trying to stab you. What happened? Yeah,
so they activated a SWAT team to go in and remove the weapons out of these cells, and these guys had barricaded their cell doors, and they knew we were coming for them. The line staff had been doing cell extractions previously, and then once that officer got stabbed in the leg, they pulled all the line staff out, activated the special emergency response team, and we went in and did, I think it was somewhere around 16, 17 hours of cell extractions.
How many cell extractions is that?
We did, God, it's been so long. They called it March Madness. It happened in March, obviously. There were so many cell extractions that night, and so it was off the hook. But they called it March Madness. So the very first, it was the first or the second cell that I was going into. We had Arizona doors, which are doors where holes have been drilled in, perforated doors,
okay.
Right? And these guys had taken a mattress and they tied the mattress through the holes so that they could barricade the door. So when we tried to open the door electronically or try to pop it open, it wouldn't move. right? So we had to put a come along on the door. And as we were using the come along to open the door, we had the door open about 4 inches. And the first guy in, he's a shield man. And he's going to have contact with the first inmate. And then I'm the second guy in. And so I had my head hunched down behind the shield man, and I felt tap, tap, tap on the back of my head. It was actually a little harder than a tap. And I thought it was the guy behind me smacking me in the back of the head, you know, get me fired up to go inside the cell. And I'm like, hey, I'm like, quit hitting me. The door's not open. No, I'm not hitting you. And I'm like, okay, somebody's hitting me. And it wasn't until the door popped and that mattress fell off. The first inmate jumped off the top bunk onto the shield man. And from there, it was a fight between those two. And the second guy came in and he rushed forward, made contact with me. I was a pretty big kid back then. I ran him up against the back of the cell, landed on top of him. And when I did, his right hand fell to the side. And what I saw was a knife that had been tethered to his hand. So if he lost control of the knife, he would be able to pull it right back to his hand and gain control of the knife again. And so I told him, I said, you touch the knife or you reach for the knife, right, and I'm gonna break your fucking arm. Yeah. So that was the second cell. And then when we went back and watched the videos after the fact, it was then that we realized that was the guy. He had the knife in his hand and he was coming outside that 4-inch door opening and he was smacking me in the back of the head with a knife. But because I had a riot helmet on and I had all my gear on, it didn't penetrate. He wound up being charged with attempted murder on a peace officer, wound up getting an additional 7 years. But you know, so this was the second door of the day. Was the second door. So needless to say, my adrenaline was off the hook. And like I said, I didn't realize until we went back and watched the video of what exactly was happening, but I knew he had a knife and I knew that he was the guy that I had contact with. And that's close. It's close. Exactly. That's really close. I'm just wrapping my head around this whole thing that you're basically, for people that don't know what a come along is, think of like it's a human powered winch, yes, effectively. And you're cranking this thing to create space so that you can get in the door. I mean, this must feel like an eternity, dude. Like, by the way, like slow motion, like just. Right? Yeah. By the way, they're throwing piss and shit through the door on top of you. That's where I was going with this. Like, so it's not just like they're not waiting for you. No, they're not waiting. In fact, they soaped up the cell floor. They put shampoo and soap on the cell floor. So when you go in, you slip and fall, then they jump on top of you. And then, you know, if they have weapons, they'll try to stab you or, you know, try to beat you down, that type of thing. And by the way, there's, 200 sets of eyes that are watching this whole thing going because all the other inmates are at their cell doors. Watching all this stuff. And learning. Oh, absolutely. Because, one of those cells is the next cell we're going into, right? And we're throwing flashbangs, out. We're lighting off flashbangs out on the outside of the building to try to draw attention to the back of the cell just momentarily so we can pop the cell door open and get in there and handle business. But the flashbangs weren't working, Wow. We had a lot of tools that we couldn't use because it was inside. We threw gases in there, tear gas, CN, that type of thing. Sure. CN has very little effect. Pepper spray has very little effect when these guys have shirts wrapped around their faces, their eyes, and they're prepared. And they soak them, so it's a filtration device that they have so that the chemicals that we use don't work. So it really comes down to physical force. And this is a long time ago. This was many years ago. But still, there's more tools out there now for the people. And cell extractions, not that there's a thing of the past, but thankfully for my brothers and sisters, they don't have to deal with the number of cell extractions that they used to. But I think this paints a really clear picture, man. And I appreciate you walking through that. I mean, I think we've seen movies, we've seen stuff on TV or whatever reality shows, but you just painted a much different picture with the detail. I mean, it's almost like you can see it, feel it, smell it, almost touch it with soap on the floor, throwing, feces and urine at you, getting hit in the back of the head, like your personal experience there. But it also speaks to like a couple of things. And I think this is a good transition to make. One, how important it is to be in good physical condition and effectively be bigger than the person that you're going up against, because you have to be physically intimidating and you have to be able to dominate. The worst thing that could happen to anybody in their life, if this hasn't happened to you, is be physically dominated by another human. It's very scary. You learn, especially one that wants to kill you, by the way, or at least, harm you, hurt you in big ways. It's a life-changing experience, and it will change your mindset, and it then can drive behaviors like hitting the gym more often, right? Eating more protein, right? Doing everything you can to have the upper edge or the upper hand in that particular situation. But it also speaks to the stress level. I hope never to have to be in that kind of a situation before. And this is your job. This is what you punched in for the day to walk in there. But and deal with this and potentially die.
Again, and this is my personal opinion, for somebody that probably did some things to some other people that in my personal opinion, I'm not so sure that you should have the opportunity to even be in the position that you're talking about right now, but I digress. But the stress, you just said that was the second door of the day, right? And you had to go multiple door after multiple door and do this time after time. That was one day in the career.
Yeah.